Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take off and fly the initial climb procedure in the Antonov 225 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We are standing at the runway 32 right at Cologne Airport, and as per the avionics setup tutorial we are prepared for the POTIP 8 Bravo departure from Cologne Airport. Now, there are two ways how to fly this. Either we can use the GPS for navigation, or we can fly it using raw data. Personally, I find the GPS navigation a little bit more complicated because of the way how the GPS course is indicated on the HSI, so I personally prefer to fly these things in raw data. However, since I know that the majority of flight sim customers prefer to use the GPS for guidance, let's go ahead and do that. So in order to use the GPS, make sure you've got this HAB button down here selected, and now the course is showing you the target track. The offset indicator shows you if you're left or right of the route, and you see the distance in kilometers to the next waypoint. So let's go ahead, and we are going to fly it in the GPS for the purpose of the tutorial, but I would personally always recommend to fly this stuff raw data, as it is just a little bit easier, in my opinion. Okay, so let's go ahead and proceed to line up on runway 32 right at Cologne Airport. The strobe lights are selected on, that is the lights we have on the top right of the panel over here. And once we are lined up on the runway, we still have to do the engine run-up procedure. But I'm going to talk you through this as we line the airplane up. Note that due to the sheer size of the plane, we need to be very careful on the lineup in order not to accidentally overshoot the end of the runway during the lineup procedure. But at the same time, you should not follow the yellow line, because that yellow line is actually only for leaving the runway, not for lining up on it. Okay, we're on the runway, set the park and brake, and now we need to do the engine warm-up procedure. And for that we're going to set the engines to 70%, and note that we can see the target thrust over here and the actual thrust on the right side. So we're going to set the target towards 71. And in the real plane you need to increase the thrust command slowly. In the simulator that doesn't matter that much, you can just throw it all the way up. Okay, now that 70% is set, we're going to watch the timing, and we need to wait for 2 minutes. So we're going to wait until the timer is down here on the 42 mark. Okay, while we're sitting on the runway and waiting, in the first minute we do nothing, but we can use that time to quickly update the GPS course, because the GPS has the tendency to mess up the initial track. So just go to flight plan, take the first waypoint, like over here, press direct to, enter, activate, and now our course is set for a straight line towards the first waypoint. That's something you can always do within that very first minute. Okay, we started setting the thrust here at 50, so that means 1 minute of the engine run-up is complete now, and now we can extend the flaps to full. In the Antonov 225 you are always going to do flap full takeoffs. The rotation speed is marked in blue, and the initial climb is the yellow speed marker over here. And then remember our speed restriction that we've selected up here on the airspeed indicator as well. Okay, the flaps are still extending. That's coming out, and that's the flaps in the full position. With the flaps out, we turn on the window heat and the DME bus, and we do the same on the other end side. Note how the switch is a little bit hidden down there. Oh, not that one, but this one. Landing lights can go on, remainder of the lights goes on, and 5 seconds to go, then we are ready for the takeoff. For the takeoff itself, release the brakes, push the thrust levers full forward, full power, For all takeoffs, there is no reduced takeoff thrust. Rotate at the bucked speed and then retract the landing gear. Retracting the landing gear in this plane is done by putting the lever up, and when the gear is up, you put the lever back to neutral and close the cover on the top. When airborne, stow the reverse levers and initially maintain the yellow buck. So, our timing is through, 2 minutes. Park and brake release. Thrust levers full forward. And here we go. The takeoff procedure is the same, regardless of the weight of the airplane. (200 kilometers an hour), checked. Rotate. The plane lifts off fairly quickly at low weights, as you can see, but remain a low pitch attitude initially. Positive rate. Gear up. Accelerate towards the yellow bug, and now we're going to climb until we're 1,000 feet above the departure field elevation. That is where we are going to start pitching down in order to increase our speed. Keep manually flying the airplane for now. Do not use the autopilot yet. Okay, we're 1,000 above the field. We can start the acceleration. And then, passing 330 kilometers an hour, flap 25, at 380, flaps 15, and note we have our initial speed restriction, so we are going to maintain this speed for now. You are supposed to hand fly this until the flaps are fully retracted. The autopilot should not be used at this stage of flight. At this point we would have called ATC and gotten a clearance to a higher altitude, so let's just select something a little bit higher up here for the purpose of the tutorial. And we are now passing the waypoint with the speed restriction, so we can pitch down, accelerate further, and at 405 kilometers an hour retract the flaps to the 2 position, and then at 440 kilometers an hour retract the flaps completely. Below level 100 we're supposed to maintain 250 knots, that equals 460 kilometers an hour. Okay, now that we're stabilized in a climb, don't forget to select the altimeter to standard at the transition altitude, which is 5,000 in our case, so altimeter is to standard. And on the metric altimeter you want to aim for 760 as your standard pressure setting. Okay, now that we're stabilized in the climb, we can engage the autopilot. In order to do that, we press the ER button up here. We have navigation selected, so pressing PC now turns on the nav mode of the autopilot, which we can verify down here by looking at autopilot nav on. At 460 kilometers an hour, we press the VEL button, and this is going to maintain the speed by pitching up. When the flaps are retracted, reduce thrust to 112 commanded up here. Landing gear is up, and we put it back to neutral and close the guard above. And like this we can continue our initial climb. As we're about to pass 10,000 feet of altitude, we can start accelerating, and we do this by putting the airplane in pitch hold, so we press the vertical button up here, and now we're going to pitch down manually using the pitch trim wheel up here. And we're going to pitch down to achieve a nice acceleration towards approximately 520 kilometers an hour during the climb. Keep in mind, this is a pitch hold, not a vertical speed hold, so as you accelerate, the airplane is going to start to climb a bit more. You can use the vertical speed mode up here in order to maintain that vertical speed. As we're approaching the target speed, we can now press VEL once again And now the airplane is going to maintain that new speed for us in the climb. So, passing 10,000, we can switch off the landing lights and we can actually retract them as well. And the only lights that should remain on at this moment are the nav light, the beacon light and the strobe light. So from here on we're established in the climb and we can go all the way up to our cruising altitude of 23,000 feet for this particular flight. So if you need to convert the units, you've got this handy unit converter up here, and I want to go to 23,000, and that equals 7,010 meters. So let's set the target altitude up to 7,000. If you are flying on VATSIM, do the controllers a favor and set the target altitude exactly. So in our case, we gotta go to the options, switch the altitude window to an increment of 1s. Now we can set 7,010. The reason to do this on VATSIM is because if the altitude shows off by 100 feet to the controllers, many VATSIM controllers are going to ask you, confirm you've got the altimeter set to standard pressure and you're maintaining your exact flight level. This isn't as much of an issue in real life, 100-foot deviation is acceptable, but nonetheless, we want to do the controllers a favor up here, and we're going to climb all the way up like this. Should you get a shortcut from air traffic control, that is quite easy to handle. We go to the GPS, and let's zoom out a little bit in order to see where we might go. Let's say we want to fly direct towards Pelon. Then we go to the flight plan, we scroll down up here and select Pelon, press Direct to, enter, activate. Now we're proceeding direct towards Pelon, as we can see here on the map, and as we can see on the HSI as well. The standard climb schedule for this aircraft: 460 km an hour below flight level 100, 520 above, until you're intersecting Mach 0.74, and when you're reaching Mach 0.74 you're going to press the max button, and that is going to maintain the Mach number for the climb. Now, for the sake of demonstration, we're going to continue our climb at Mach 0.60. So once Mach 0.60 indicates up here, I'm going to switch the airplane into the Mach hold mode, or as Antonov calls it, the Mach stabilization. So that's Mach 0.60 now. Let's go to Mach stabilization. And once we've done this, the airplane is going to pitch automatically in order to maintain Mach 0.60 in the climb. It is going to ignore the settings that we've done on the speed window up here, and instead it will simply continue the climb at the constant Mach number. Now bear with me for now, because things will become a little bit more interesting as we are about to level off at our cruising altitude. The rates of climb you are going to see in this airplane are going to reduce significantly as you approach the higher flight levels. The rate of climb in the region between 300 and 500 feet a minute can very well be expected when you are climbing to a high altitude at a high weight. So, when you are approaching those high altitudes, we still need to reduce our rate of climb as we are approaching the cleared altitude, and this is how we're going to do it. With about 1 to go, I'm going to press the vertical button up here, and that is going to take it back into pitch hold. Now that we've got it on vertical, I'm going to adjust the pitch in order to reduce our vertical speed until we reach 1,000 feet a minute. When we reach 1,000 feet a minute, like basically now, we're going to press the H3 button, and this is going to synchronize the vertical speed wheel, and the plane is now going to maintain that vertical speed until it levels off at the altitude indicated up here. Once again, notice that this is in meters per second, and you've got a variometer reading meters per second up here, and you've got a one reading foot down here. Generally, the altimeter on the primary panel is going to give you altitude information in meters, and you've got it in feet on the standby indicator up here. So we are now leveling off at our cruising altitude, and we can engage the Autothrottle in order to maintain our cruising speed. And here is an important bit of information. Even when you're leveling off an altitude, in order for the airplane to follow the target speed that you've selected up here, you want your airplane to be in the speed stabilization mode, which is the white VEL button, and not in Mach stabilization. If you're in Mach stabilization, then it is going to ignore the speed setting up here, but will simply fly the Mach number that it maintained while you were flying in the Mach stabilization mode. So let me demonstrate this. Assuming we were climbing to a much higher flight level, we would probably have been using the Mach stabilization mode in order to climb at a constant Mach number by the time we reach our cruising altitude. If that happened, and the airplane levels off and enters altitude stabilization, as we can see up here, then the Mach stabilization mode is still active, and that means Autothrottle is going to ignore your speed setting. So look at this. Now we're in Mach stabilization, and even though I command a higher airspeed, the airplane is not following it, but maintaining the Mach number at which the Mach stabilization mode was engaged. In order to follow the speed that we've selected up here, we need to be sure to be in speed stabilization mode. And the way we can do it is by pressing speed stabilization. It's going to light up for a moment and thereafter go into altitude stabilization again. But now that we are in speed stabilization, the Autothrottle is going to follow the speed command from the window up here. Do note that when you press the speed stabilization button, it is going to synchronize your indicated airspeed to the to the speed window. But now, if we adjust this, for example, to 550 kilometers an hour, we can see Autothrottle is following it and following the speed window. That is going to conclude this tutorial. I hope that you have learned something. Please do let me know what you thought was different than you expected and what might have been new for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again very soon. Finally, if you want to support the channel, you can do so using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below, or by becoming a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive access to new videos, and in first-class membership, even the ability to request your own videos. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all again very soon.